Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the second session. We're making a small adjustment to the programme in that I am not Mary Flynn, as you can see, but Alan Hoare here, one of the founders of the Alliance. What can I say? I'm so happy right now with the reception that we have got. I just want to take a second to look at you all and to take in some of the faces that we haven't seen for over 2 years. The last time we were together in person was Galway, and what a reception we got in Galway. And what a reception we've got this morning in the Gibson. Hats off to all of the CitA team. Thank you, sponsors, for your support. So really, I suppose what this week is about, or this event was planned to be about, was to look at 10 recurring challenges facing construction across the globe. We then went to our members, our network, and we asked them, can you resonate with these challenges? And they came back with 3 key messages and 3 key challenges they wanted us to look at. Day 1 was the big challenge, resource scarcity and increased costs, not just in construction, in your household as well. Day 2, the need to change and become more serious about climate change and thinking in a circular way. We could see what's happened in the Netherlands in the last few days. They have made a decision, a strategic decision, to stop thinking in a linear fashion. Stop designing, building, and wasting. Recycle everything that we do. So today is about procurement, and actually if you just look at procurement just for a second, procurement is any activity necessary to deliver a business requirement through a supply chain. So what we heard in the first session was from the public sector, from government. It was great to have Paolo with us this morning. I was delighted to pick him up on our national city airport last night and spend some time with him. And also to hear from Mairead, what honesty and pragmatism the message that Mairead gave us this morning. And from Ross, Enterprise Ireland, who've been charged with this, I suppose, this challenge of addressing the housing crisis, and not least to Jonathan, and I wish him well and his family well at this time as COVID continues to impact on our lives. So really, what we're doing this morning is, this session is the core of today. This combined group of companies equate to almost 75 billion euros of business across the globe. We have a major contractor, one of our largest contractors, Johnston & Son. We have Siemens, a global organization in the built environment. We have the BRE Group, a global R&D entity based in the UK. We have BAM. And so really these are the organizations that are truly innovating, in that they're not just, they're not necessarily the designers, but they're the people who do the work on the ground. They're the people who do the build. So I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, or speakers, Cillian and Dillon. And I was also delighted earlier last month to award them the first of the ICE Awards, the Irish Construction Excellence BIM Excellence Award, and so well deserved. So I'm going to hand over now to the 2 guys, and they'll let us know more about their project. Cillian, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alan. Morning, everybody. So my name is Cillian Kelly. My role will be Head of Digital Project Delivery with Johnston & Son, and today we're going to talk about BIM excellence in the public sector. One of the projects we were looking at was Grangegorman. So Grangegorman would have been a project I think a lot of people in the room here would be familiar with. We started bidding on this project back in maybe 2014 up to 2015. So it's a long journey on digital transformation for us as an organisation, but also for the industry and our supply chain as well. So what I'm going to cover today, I'm going to go through just an intro, overview of Grangegorman, and then our DPD strategy. So one of the messages we want for everyone to take away from today is digital project delivery and what that means for a company and how you can actually implement this onto your projects. And then just some recommendations and then some questions and answers at the end. So Grangegorman, it was a design and build PPP contract where we were on a bid process with a number of other contractors, and we had to put forward a proposal with a full design team for 2 quads. You had the East Quad and the Central Quad. And I suppose during this stage, it was a challenging time in the industry, and it was one of the first BIM and digital projects that we actually had to execute for project delivery. So the Central Quad is, I suppose, the centre of excellence for science, and it has a total of 10 schools. So there's a lot of coordination, a very complex structure, and a lot of supply chains, a lot of different stakeholders being involved in this. We had the East Quad, which would be the National Conservatory of Ireland, and then essentially this here is you had theatres and you had arts facilities within this campus. So we had 2 very complex buildings that we had to make sure were fully coordinated, fully designed, and at the time you had PAS 1182, which would have been the standard at the time. We had to make sure that our design teams were aligned to, and then all of our supply chains. So it was a different way of working in the industry at the time. It's moved on to ISO 19650, but at the time, I suppose this would have been a big challenge for any contractor in the industry to actually deliver these projects with a full design and build contract. So the employers' requirements, there would have been an employers' requirements that had high expectations of what we had to deliver. We had design coordination, we had asset information at handover, we had to integrate with the facilities management team, and we had a full maintenance period for 25 years of the life cycle of the building. So we had to integrate with an FM team to make sure that as we were designing the buildings, we were gathering all that information, asset information for handover. How we done that was using the process we call digital project delivery internally within CISC. So within digital project delivery, there's 3 core enablers. You have your BIM model, you have information management, and then you have innovative technology. And for any organization or for any process, if you use these 3 core enablers, you can digitize your traditional method for project delivery. So we've introduced this within our business, and we have it that we have a number of core enablers that comes out from that. So you can see within BIM, you have elements such as 3D BIM modeling, 4D planning, 5D quantity takeoff, 6D facilities management. But now, I suppose, and even one of the challenges that was mentioned, you have design for manufacturing and assembly, also known as modern methods of construction. So this is where our supply chain do offsite fabrication, and it's all designed in a virtual environment, comes to site, and it's right first time construction. And then how do we actually get the intelligence around that? You have your data and your project controls. So as CISC as an organisation, we've actually changed. We brought in a lot of new roles into the company, and we now have data analysts that's now doing analysation of the information within our BIM models. And Dillon's going to go into some more detail of how we actually capture that information during construction and design stage, and then how is it beneficial to us during facilities management. Under information management, this holds, I suppose, it's the glue of the construction process. It holds all the information together. But we have a full information management team now where we go out onto site, and our document control and information system managers actually support and assist our project teams around naming conventions, workflows, approval processes, all which are requirements as part of ISO 19650. And then essentially we have our field data capture. So for all of our snags and all of our quality informs inspections, it's all been done in a digital platform, whereas previously this would have been all paper-based. So it's bringing it all together in a digital process. And how do you actually use this? Through innovative technology, such as your mobile tablets, your touch screens, your mixed reality, drones, laser scanning, and we're also using AI progress tracking it on site as well. So all of this wrapped in together is known as digital project delivery. You can see how this is actually blended throughout CISC as an organisation, that it doesn't just sit with the digital project delivery function, it's throughout every team within the business, right from pre-construction, right into planning, project controls, even our partner companies such as Vision Built and Sensory FM. We have a digital project delivery strategy and a digital project delivery approach on throughout the business to make sure that we have a digital transformation strategy of how we'll digitize that process. So what we'll do, we'll look at the projects and we'll actually see how can we actually make this digital? Can we get some benefits by using a BIM model? Can we use the information management platform? And what sort of technology can we introduce onto the project as well? So we implemented a DPD strategy in Grangegorman. What does that entail? And what's that made up of? So you have your typical BIM execution plans, you have your employer's information requirements, and then we have our information management protocol. So with this, we had multiple stakeholders. As I mentioned, there was a design and build. So you had multiple design teams and then our supply chain all working together in the one environment. We were using Viewpoint for projects as the platform to collaborate. And then all of our documentation was actually developed, signed off, and became part of the contractual documents. That's how we'd actually deliver BIM and digital on those projects. And we had to make sure that we met the client's deliverables as well throughout the project. So the platform that we were using, as mentioned, is Viewpoint for projects. You can see typical folder structure, what it would look like. So essentially, it's a cloud-based platform for collaboration. And we use this for approvals from our design teams. So how do we approve information? How do we upload information? Who should that drawings go? Who should the drawings go to before they get approved, before they go out onto site? If we had any RFIs, we'd raise the RFIs through the platform. If we had to do a comparison of different revisions as to see any design changes, you can do this all within the one environment. So Viewpoint for projects was a platform we used on Grangegorman, and this is how we actually executed the project. But there's a number of different platforms out there in the industry, and you can see more and more requirements for people with this digital skill set. But we have to make sure that they're easy to use and easy to navigate, and that it is the right information at the right time. And as I mentioned, you raise your RFIs, and any information that you want to direct your design team to is all within the one platform. So you don't have duplication, and you have a full audit trail and record of all the information on the project. So this is managed, as I mentioned, by our document control team. That'll be key to managing the information management. We just mentioned that's aligned with ISO 19650, but at the time, Grangegorman would have been past 1182. The next platform, and you can see that we're doing our standard concrete pre-pour checklist. So essentially, everyone has a mobile phone now. We'll give them access to Field View, and then we can carry out all of our snags, issues, ITP forms out on site. But this is for all the trades and the SMEs to digitize the way they're doing their processes out on site, to make sure that we're stepping away from this paper-based way of working, and to make sure that all the trades out on site have a full record of all the ITPs, inspections, any forms that we're actually capturing on site. It's been done digitally. The client didn't call up that we use these types of platforms, but these are platforms that actually we can gain benefits from, and our supply chain can gain benefit from. So the next slide, I'm going to hand you over to Dillon here. Dillon Johnston would have joined us as a graduate from GMIT. So he's going to run through the digital project delivery approach. So there you go, Dillon.
Cheers, Cillian. Right, so I started my career, college in 2014 in GMIT. I studied architecture technology, and I graduated in 2018, and that's when I joined CISC on Grangegorman, summer 2018. So I joined Grangegorman to be kind of a role where it'd be leading the implementation of the BIM strategy and the DPD strategy. So I'm going to go through that in the next few slides. So our main goal on the project was the design authoring through BIM. So all our design models were developed through Revit 2016. That's when the design phase started. We done all the landscape models in Vectorworks, which were all shared with the design team via IOC and share coordinates. We shared our models on a weekly basis, which allowed the full design team to kind of have access to all the information, and alongside our contractors as well. We tracked all design changes via Excel trackers, which we were able to connect back to the Navisworks and the 3D model. And we also had a transmittal sheet for all of our models, so we were able to track all the changes or the high-level changes that were done in the model on a weekly basis. And moving on to kind of some of the design reviews we carried out. We carried out quite a lot of design reviews with the client, our design team, even our contractors, even internal design reviews, just to make sure that we were able to pick up on any issues so it wouldn't carry on to site. So kind of design reviews like room layouts, equipment layouts, and kind of structural analysis and all stuff like that. So Navisworks would have been our main kind of tool for 3D coordination. and we would have, any issues we found, we would have saved as a viewpoint, and then actually brought on to BIM Collab, which was our kind of cloud-based BIM issue management software. We also utilized D-routes for a lot of information production, so like all your non-graphical information, like we would have exported schedules from Revit and populated in Excel and imported back in. We were able to streamline our drawing production where we could bulk print everything to PDF and DWG all at the same time. We would have used visualizations and communication throughout the whole project. We created numerous videos for the client and the surrounding community. It was a very big site in Dublin city centre, and there was a lot of the community around. They wanted to see what we're doing, so we actually did a lot of renders and would have put posters up around the whole site and engaged with the community around us. Our main software we actually used for all these walkthroughs and renders was Lumium, where we would have edited all these videos in Adobe Premiere Pro. Adobe just allowed us to have those advanced editable features inside it for, like, let's say, the likes of 360 footage and all that. For all the internals, we actually used Enscape, where we would have done the likes of 360 renders, which we could have embedded into a QR code into our drawings. And we also put QR codes all around the site, so people on the site can scan the QR code and actually give them, here, this is what the space is going to look like before it's built. And I was thankfully enough that with CISC, we're able to get access to various different platforms for testing. So we tested the likes of Twinmotion, Unity, and Unreal Engine and Grangegorman, just to see which is the best platform that we will use across the business. So in terms of kind of the 3D design and construction coordination, we just commenced early in the pre-construction phase and carried all the way through to nearly the end of construction, because we had a very tight program for design and build. It was a joint venture with FCC, so we had myself and Cillian, and we had one more BIM manager from FCC. We started coordination through Navisworks, capturing viewpoints, and then sharing kind of a tracker in Excel, which again is a bit old school. So we carried out a business level review on a digitized platform for BIM issue tracking, and we actually chose BIM Collab as our platform of choice. And Grangegorman was actually our first major project within CISC to adopt BIM Collab, and a lot of the lessons learned that came from using it on Grangegorman actually is now how we set up the BIM Collab across the business. So Offsite digital fabrication, or DFMA, and MMC, we aim to use, or to offsite fabricate as much as we could in Grangegorman. There's some of the elements like the facade panels and combined window units on the central quad. It's a very prominent feature on the building. The atrium stairs of both the central quad and east quad, they were big, huge, full flight prefabricated steel stairs, actually shipped to site and lowered from the top down. The likes of your precast stairs and cores, and you can see here on the picture we have this the performance hall in the east quad. So we had our steel kind of lowered down into 12 different sections and then connected back to the frame. So in terms of the coordination on this, it was a very heavy task to coordinate with all disciplines. So it was a very heavy coordination cycle. But we actually had all of our coordination and all clashes with any of our prefabricated elements clash-free on the building before it went into fabrication.
I suppose just to add to this here as well, like with MMC and offsite fabrication, it's essential that you have it fully coordinated virtually before it comes to site. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure. So what we were doing was ensuring that it was right in a virtual environment, in the 3D model, making sure that all of our stakeholders had all of their elements coordinated with the packages that would be coming off-site. So I think for anyone, and I know that MMC it's one of the main topics in the industry now, and everyone wants to move towards off-site. But in order to do that, you have to ensure that it's digital first, and that it's fully coordinated in a digital environment. And then even what we were doing is doing 4E scheduling. So what was the sequence of the install of these packages coming to site as well? But as mentioned, it's crucial that you get it right first time in a virtual environment. So when it does come to site, that it fits, and that you have, even if you had to go and scan it beforehand to make sure that any modules or any off-site packages that's coming to site is fully coordinated before they come to site. So it's really important. And I think CISC, even as an organisation, we're now moving towards this kind of off-site manufacturing, and any project that we're looking at, we're seeing where can we gain opportunities by going into MMC, and how do we do that? We do it virtually first, speak with our supply chain, and then we make sure that any software packages they're working with, like even, for instance, with the facade panels, there was a lot of coordination that had to be done, and even making sure that they all work together in the same shared coordinates with different software platforms. There's a lot of prep work that has to be done to make sure that works when it comes to site. Otherwise, you could have a subcontractor using a different version of a platform that doesn't integrate with your coordination platform, and then all of a sudden there's an issue and you're hitting program and you start running into delays. Whereas if you've done this ahead of time, make sure that you have all the software platforms agreed. You do kind of mock-up integration with the different software types, only in small scale. And then when it comes to actually the full large-scale manufacturing, you know that it's going to be right first time, and you have done all the prep work beforehand. So that's a lot of the work that myself and Dillon, we would have been doing, but we'd have this all documented in the BIM execution plan, and then it'd be up to Dillon and the design management team and the package managers to go out and actually execute this on site. So it's a point just to raise, because it is very important kind of going forward in the industry with MMC. So go on ahead, Dillon.
Our construction record and as-built model. So during the construction phase, it was outlined that we would progressively redline drawings as a method of tracking as-builts. The redline drawings were then kind of, as you know, they're not going to be done on one big sheet on site. They're going to be done on an A3, and then they actually get brought back into the contractor's office where they would have a master set. So once that master set was complete on a certain area, we would actually get them to update the model, and we would run a clash detection just to make sure, because we had multiple contractors saying their model was as-built, so we just had to do that kind of last review. Whatever issues we found there, we actually either use Hollow Builder in a meeting, in our weekly BIM meeting, or if we couldn't decide on who was at fault, we'd actually go out on site and take a few pictures which we could actually upload back to BIM Collab as well through the phone or the iPad. So like a lot of our dates then for kind of delivery of construction as-built drawings and models were actually taken then from the Master Information Delivery Plan, and we were trying to hit our dates based off that as well. So. Then follow on with Hollow Builder for space tracking and for management and record. During COVID-19, a lot of our sites were shut down in Ireland and UK or across the world. But luckily enough, Grangegorman was kind of deemed a necessary building to keep going for the 2021 academic year. So this presented a lot of challenges for our design team, which were primarily based in the UK. So they weren't able to travel over and freely as they wanted to. So we actually implemented the use of 360 cameras on the site. So we had 2 in each site. And then we introduced Hollow Builder as a way of tracking those 360 images, where you can go around your 360 camera and plant it on one of your planned drawings, and then you have the full version control of, like, let's say you could have taken one photo a week for 10 weeks, then you can compare from week 1 to week 10. So this kind of reduced the need for a travel site and all of our site supply chain. Yeah. Moving on to digital project management and data analytics. So advanced reporting wasn't a key driver on Grangegorman, but with industry development, it's proven data insights is become very useful for better decision making and planning on our projects. Learning and adoption of gathering, cleaning, and implementing data on a project was carried out in certain aspects on the Grangegorman, where for the likes of kind of as-built trackers, would have been tracking all of our drawings through the MIDP, BIM issue tracking through BIM Collab. We actually did a lot of B-card tracking, so we created a master B-card tracker, and we also did some design trackers as well, which we actually brought into Power BI to develop some really useful insights and kind of see where we were at, and actually it proved to be very, very useful back in 2019 onwards. So this kind of increased the data insights, and we were able to kind of plan and make the better decisions.
Yeah, so even just, I suppose, on data analytics, it is becoming more of an essential role now on the site, whereas previously, like, we wouldn't have had the skill set around Power BI or people that was actually a data analyst that they've studied that. But now you can see, with the amount of information we're gathering on the common data environment, on our digital field tools, in our BIM models, we can now start mining that information and getting good predictions as to how we're actually doing on performance, how's our design coming along, how's our subcontractors performing. So it's now a new skill set that we're now having to develop. But even for smaller SMEs, you have a lot of data there available. And what I would say is probably if you understand what information you want to get and what, I suppose, what's the end result that you're trying to look for initially, you can then bring that information into the likes of a platform such as Power BI and then start to get really good insights as into items such as I mentioned either design or subcontract performance. You can see how they're actually managing their packages based on the information that's been uploaded to the platform or how progressed along the BIM models are. So it is, again, similar to MMC, data and analytics is becoming a big, I suppose, topic in the industry as well. So.
And just to follow on that one, Cillian, so in 2021 I actually started the first year of the Digital Construction and Engineering Analytics course in TUD. So it was the first year around last year, so I'm hoping to kind of move on to the second year sometime this year or maybe start next year with Alan there. So yeah, I'm very, yeah. So kind of in terms of the asset management, Kobe, so you're like your KFM system or your CMMS. For this project, we actually partnered with CitA, which are going to maintain the project for the next 25 years. In the kind of design phase BP and construction phase BP, we had the high level kind of non-graphical information or data exchange requirements outlined, where we had planned to further develop that with our contractors during the like kind of early phases of the construction phase. So we would have worked fairly closely with Sodexo and our contractors to develop those requirements, and that would have produced our asset information requirements for the project. Like this lasted several months trying to agree every parameter that we could potentially fill or wanted to fill. So there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of communication was required just to get this. And then that required a lot of work. Like I personally spent 12 months or 1,500 hours actually tracked everything. And it took a long time to get to where we need it, but we actually now have a full asset information model that's been implemented into a digital twin.
Yep. Yeah, so look, we're just going to wrap it up now. So we can take questions as we're going, but this is just a short video that just kind of explains the process we went through in those slides. So you can see as we go through Grangegorman, both the East and Central Quad, and how we were using it with our design teams, and then how we were bringing it into construction, and then what software and platforms we were using. As mentioned at the bid stage, we had to, it was a competitive bid where we had to demonstrate and the proposed designs. We had to work with, as Dillon mentioned, design teams that were based in the UK, but we had to do this in a collaborative environment. So we were using Viewpoint, we were using Navisworks, and then we'd be rendering in platforms such as 3ds Max and Lumium to actually produce these types of renders, which would be part of the proposals as part of the contract award and bid stage. So I think, look at, I suppose, CISC would have been successful with FCC based on the design, the proposed design that was actually put forward. So what I would say for anyone that hasn't been out to Grangegorman is actually, if you get a chance to go out and visit the campus, because they are, I suppose, two impressive buildings when they're being handed over, and you can see the design thought that was put into it and how they were all coordinated and how they work together. So Dillon, if you want to.
Yeah, so you can see here, this is kind of just an example of kind of doing some design reviews and kind of coordination through NAMSWorks. So I'm just kind of navigating through the model. I'm actually looking at the steel frame here. Now I'm going on to the civils, which we had an impressive as-built civil model from the Grangegorman Development Agency, which we integrated very well with our own systems. And now I'm just you can see I'm just carrying out some clash detection here, which you'll see. Then I'll bring into BIM Collab. I'm going to comment on some issues, and then once I sync it back, it'll actually sync back straight to the cloud, and it'll send out notifications to the team as well. And with this, we actually brought this into Power BI through the KPI I worked with BIM Collab to create, where we can gain some better insights onto the project and report back to our supply chain.
Yeah, and so look, you can see even a simple process such as drone footage. If you have agreed monthly drone footage to track the progress on site, this is now standard across all of our projects, that you'd have drone footage, you agree the flight path, and you agree with the authorities when you're doing those each flight. But it's great then when you can have this as a record then to go back over at the end of a project. You can see the progress right throughout the construction. So as I mentioned, Grangegorman would have been one of the first projects we bring this type of policy into the company, but now we have this across all of our projects. And then you can see here we're on Hollow Builder and Active Plan here, which would be the actual handover platform that we had, the asset information. So the client now has access to Active Plan, which we're using for the asset information which we gathered during construction, and we have a full digital safety file within Active Plan as well. So that's it. Thanks very much for the opportunity. If anyone has any questions, we're more than happy to take any questions.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks to Kieran and Dillon for a very impressive presentation. As a TU Dublin employee, we're very proud of Grangegorman, and it is a very, very impressive site. So our next speaker, John Lacy, is a smart building solutions lead in Siemens. Siemens have somewhat transformed themselves since their formation in 1925 as predominantly electrical and engineering company to a global tech powerhouse. Would that be right? Yeah. So over to you, John. So.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Alan, for inviting me here today to speak. It's a real privilege, and it's been a fantastic event. I attended online there on Tuesday, and really fantastic event today. And I mean, I'm speaking to the converted here. I can see that. We've come a long way. I actually did my industrial placement with CISCs back in 1996, a while ago, on the Marine Hotel, and wow, very different construction environment. There was barely a computer or a laptop around, so you were privileged to get access to one back then. So wow, how far we've come. I suppose I'm Siemens Smart Buildings Lead, new position with Siemens, and I better get used to this, make sure this works. I'll click on to the next slide. Sorry, I'm not very used to these kind of events at all. It's the first time speaking at one of these. It's like my first date at a conference like this, so please forgive this, nerves. Okay, look, my background's construction. Actually, feel like I grew up on construction sites. My father was a quantity surveyor, developer, contractor, and brought me around to all the sites as I was growing up. And in the days when you could bring kids to construction sites, I suppose. And I suppose I started with Siemens 10 years ago. After 13 years in construction, I built 2 schools, 1,100 houses, an industrial centre, quite a lot of construction experience. But things got a bit quiet, and I started with Siemens after getting a Master's in Energy Management from DIT. Kevin Street wasn't quite as fancy as Grangegorman. Started as an energy data analyst in my second career 10 years ago with Siemens, and it's been a wonderful journey since then, really been fantastic. I was involved in a lot of energy performance contracting, or outcome-based solutions, as we called it, and it's been great. Energy management has really come into the fore now these days with the amount of decarbonisation that's necessary, and we were doing it with heavy industry, manufacturing industry across the UK and Ireland, and I even got to do workshops in Saudi Arabia and Scandinavia with Siemens to help them reduce their energy consumption in big industry globally. So it's been a fantastic journey. And very recently I've started as Smart Buildings Lead to bring our digital solutions and more so to the fore in the Irish market, where we've been delivering these solutions globally for quite some time. So look, I'll give you a quick introduction to Siemens, talk about smart buildings, our digitally enabled building services, our data services, and our IoT solutions, and give a couple of reference cases. Okay? I'll take a breath now. Okay, so we've been around a little longer than you mentioned, Alan. 175 years on the 1st of October, and it's still innovating with a 4.9 billion R&D expenditure last year, and 43,400 granted patents, so pretty big company, and first major industrial company to commit to becoming carbon neutral, and quite strong targets toward net zero, science-based targets for 2030. So leading the way in a lot of respects. Number 1 on the Dow Jones Index, and leading the way in a lot of other areas, innovation, cybersecurity, and with its products. So also helping our customers reduce their energy consumption through our products with massive greenhouse gas savings. So yeah, it was 1925 that Siemens did quite a large project in Ireland, electrifying the Irish Free State with the Ardnacrusha hydroelectric power plant. We were here before that in 1874, putting in a cable between Ballinskelligs and Halifax, Nova Scotia. So been around for a while. So I've only been with them 10 years, and within that 10 years, if you look at 2015, the Desigo CC, many would know it here, our BMS system, Charter of Trust in 2018, and then in 2020, some key acquisitions of software businesses and hardware businesses, Comfy, Workplace app, and the United IoT solution, which was very useful as the return to workplace in with COVID times. So, and more recently this year, a lot of talk about digital twins today, but Siemens acquired the Ecodomus, which is a digital twin for a facilities management company, and it's a core component now to our existing portfolio where we can really complement that with our existing business. So yeah, it might surprise people to think of Siemens as one of the top 10 software companies in the world, and with a revenue last year of 5.6 billion from digital businesses, quite a number of offerings there, and across the whole portfolio. So it's not just the smart buildings piece or smart infrastructure that I work for, but the mobility, digital industries, and we all get leverage out of the same type of things we're all talking about here today: the data analytics, the AI and IoT, simulation, and very importantly, the cybersecurity. So we have our DevOps environment, we have our software, we're applying all of this good stuff to cross all our verticals, all our industries. Okay, enough about Siemens for now. So smart buildings, and it's great to see Grangegorman. It's really, really impressive presentation. I can't believe how far we've come. I suppose, where are we on that journey from traditional to smart buildings and beyond? Where are we? Are we getting towards that autonomous building? Not quite yet, but are we equipping the buildings that we're building now? They're going to be around for quite a while. So with the data streams, I think in this case it's looking really good, but there's still quite a lot of buildings that have a long way to go. From the traditional point of view, where we've more siloed and more reactive services, we don't have the data that's necessary. When are we going to get to it? There was a great presentation on Tuesday by Sharon Richardson, I think from Databricks, about the predictive, prescriptive and analytics that's possible. And I think there's no doubt about it, the direction that we're going in. And having that data source is essential. We're not going to be able to deliver all of this without it. Okay. So there's a lot of trends and needs that we're responding to at the moment, adapting to meet the challenges. And I suppose key to this is our new workplace experience. We've higher end user expectations and big changes with flexible working. So we need the data, we need to understand how buildings are operating. We're all used to better interaction in our user experience on our mobile devices, and we've a lot to learn from that. I think in the building industry, making it easier, simpler for those that have to use these systems so they can easily resolve issues and have a positive experience with the software that they're interacting with. I think it's improving all the time. We've got higher energy costs, they've gone pretty crazy, so big focus. And then sustainability, I think decarbonisation targets, ESG, and we all, Siemens are certainly trying to lead the way in this respect. Digitalisation, and a lot of talk about it, obviously, and really getting value from the data. And that is one of the key things that I've seen over the last couple of days, is this is what we're actually doing. It's no longer the hard work to get it. We are deriving value for the data, and we can keep on making that easier and better, more productivity and more efficient systems and less waste. But without the cybersecurity, it's all it has to be in place, obviously, to adhere to the standards so that everybody has trust and faith in the systems that we're using. So I suppose Siemens' approach to smart buildings, there's a lot of text on this slide, but it's really a user-centric approach, building on that user experience and looking at those personas and developing the right solutions to meet those user needs, the end user needs, whether it's the operator or whatever building we're trying to, the purpose of those that are using the building, that we're meeting that. We have to have the flexibility built into our systems now. We've seen how changes can happen very unexpectedly, and we need need to be able to respond to that and respond to our broader ecosystem as an interactive building. We've to deliver sustainable systems, and we've spoken about the standards here today: ISO 27001 for cybersecurity, EN 15232 for building management systems, and ISO 9650. They're all key, and they all enable us and help us on our journey. So Siemens, I suppose, and would be very strong in the market here with fire safety, security and access, BMS, HVAC, lighting, power, and third-party integration with the overall BMS system. And we have our IoT solutions. And now it's a matter of building on that. And I think it's great to see the digital twin coming into the facilities side, but reconnecting that now with the real-time data that's available from our buildings and making that whole system work. So it's all getting easier. It's great. But we have to be able to apply these for quite a number of different solutions, whether it's our healthcare sector, it's for really trying to enable that healing and the workplace that people need, smart office, smart campus. But I suppose we're lucky in Siemens where we've had a lot of very strong collaborations over time and worked to fulfill these needs and identify the use cases and deliver them for our customers, particularly in industry where we've very strong collaboration. Okay, so here's a snapshot, quite a lot here, but an example architecture, I suppose Siemens something Siemens is developing, working towards, and has released in a lot of countries globally, where there's a platform, a single platform, rather than where we've come from with a lot of siloed platforms, providing the information for all of these different systems. And we've got, I think this is all in place from the products and systems below as they were siloed and separated before, moving towards that common data structure, and we've seen some examples. So, and really making that open and accessible for other systems via API and integrating with the IT landscape and infrastructure that's there for different verticals. This is a connected platform we've had for quite a while, but it's 75,000 connected buildings and counting, where we are allocating the algorithms and the analytics, I suppose, to help building operators reduce their energy costs and have an easier time of it. And it's really operating at scale and centrally to help with energy and asset performance. I'll talk a little bit about IoT solutions now, and there's a business operating in globally. It was bought in 2018 by Siemens, acquired, called Enlighted, and along with that we had a key partner here, Scott Group, Jimmy Preston, sitting beside me down there, this business that Siemens, they're just a startup from about 10 years ago in Silicon Valley that had really clever sensors and system to enable a lot of these great use cases. So look, it starts with the smart sensors and devices and getting that data up to a cloud platform and be able to apply the applications and services to really add that value for our end customers along the way. So I suppose that's this is just a slide depicting that Enlighted solution, starting with the smart sensor there in the left-hand corner. It really high processing power and storage capability and updatable. But it's a sensor we can install in the lighting. It can come attached with the LED lighting fitting, and as a part of a retrofit project, it works very well. And communicate the data back through gateways, whether it's measuring the energy data, the motion and detection of people in rooms, the ambient light levels, and detect the daylight for daylight harvesting, temperature, and Bluetooth enabled for Bluetooth low energy signals and data packages from Bluetooth devices. So that capturing that data, and I suppose this is just like the journey of the door spoken about earlier. This is like, getting that, starting at that point in time with a sensor and bringing it all the way through. But if you don't have that data available in the first place, you really are limited in what you can achieve. So with that data then, there's an application layer on top, starting on the left-hand side, very facility-centric, where you're managing your energy consumption, managing your lighting profile, over on the right-hand side, where you're really getting the high-value data to understand how your building's being used. Who knows how their buildings are being used these days? There's people with campuses and offices, and who comes and goes, and who's really there? What space do we need? Does anybody know? So, and RTLS through location-based applications. So, and this data can be delivered by API to other solutions. We use Comfy and Blue GPS from the Enlighted systems, and the API data goes out from these systems to inform other systems. So there's a couple of screenshots of the Enlighted dashboards, and there's some pretty cool analytics there that can be applied and really allow informed decision making of how we use our spaces and adjust based on this. Okay, a couple of use cases. I mentioned before we go, we have plenty going on in Ireland with Enlighted, quite a large install in a very large pharmaceutical plant that's a vaccine maker in the west of Dublin. So at the moment it's ongoing, and it's great to see, and saving unbelievable amount of energy and really future-proofing buildings. And quite a lot of installs in our global high-tech sector. I think one of the biggest software companies in the world based in Dublin has installed it, and Scott Group have been over with that company doing installations in Africa and in Eastern Europe because of the great installation work that has gone on, and how satisfied that customer was with their work. So this one is a very long-term energy performance contract and collaborative partnership, really. It's taken a while to put in place, but it's the University of Birmingham, quite an ambitious statement that they released in a joint press release to be the smartest university campus in the world. In the first phase of the project, there's 23,000 Enlighted centres being installed, but this is just the first stage. This is just kicking it off, getting an understanding of how the buildings are actually being used, and potentially offsetting the need for additional buildings, additional concrete, and the overall impact on carbon production. So campus-wide energy upgrades, energy and asset installations, and really working through phase by phase to bring them to a net zero position collaboratively. So just an example of a reference case that's ongoing. This project, it's quite a big one, and it was completed in 2019. It's the Ankara City Hospital in Turkey, and it's a 1.3 million square metre hospital, one of the largest hospitals in the world. I think it's about over 8 times bigger than our own National Children's Hospital. But Siemens took on the design, operation, build and financing of the 22 subsystems that were being installed there, and also took on the first 5 years of operation with the intention probably to extend well beyond that. So I suppose the example that I'm giving here, I don't think it's the technology that's holding us back. If you look at the integration on this project, it was using the Zego CC as a central platform, but it's in the most complex, critical environments. It is possible to deliver. You make use of data and provide solutions that are really high value. 22 systems here, 800,000 data points from all of the subsystems there, and Siemens as master systems integrator was able to pull that all together and provide it to the end customer for all of their hospital campus. So yeah, just an example. Okay, and so I suppose this is my last slide, just to wrap it up. But what Siemens are doing is making smart buildings real, and really trying to deliver on that end user experience, learning from our software experiences, and applying that same methodology, delivering for our end users to protect and ensure we don't have stranded assets that are being built really and in need of major retrofit, and ultimately meeting the business goals and the purpose of the buildings that we're providing for, and then providing the sustainability and energy efficient solutions. So we're working closely with our partners and customers, and available to as part of this ecosystem that we're to move forward and bring our technology to contribute towards smarter buildings. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Thanks very much. A fascinating insight. And actually, one of the themes that's coming out from both these presentations is integration. I think the CIS team mentioned something like 18 pieces of technology, and all that had to work together. And of course, that was obvious as well, John, in your slides. So great to hear from the powerhouse that is Siemens. So our next speaker, the organisation doesn't need a particular introduction. Arup, one of the largest global consultants that are out there, a great supporter of the alliance. And as is John Siskin's son earlier on. And so our speaker is Michael Galbraith, the immersive technology specialist at Arup. So you're going to talk about the 4 pillars of immersive technology.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, Alan. Thanks for the introduction. So first of all, so a bit about my background. I do interaction design. But now I'm an immersive technology specialist at Arup. I joined Arup in 2018. I was working in the London office within the virtual and visualization team. And then in 2020, I moved to Dublin and I'm now setting up the immersive technology team there. So a little bit about the agenda. So first of all, what is immersive technology from kind of a basic level into how Arup are integrating immersive technology and our kind of aims. And then next is the 4 pillars. So we use this as our kind of building blocks throughout the project life cycle as well. So what is immersive technology? So kind of how I best see it is kind of submerging yourself within a new digital environment. So it's kind of moving beyond the 2D forms into kind of 3D and having spatial kind of awareness and new perspectives as well, with 360 audio. And then this can range from screen-based applications to VR and AR and mixed reality. So I'm just going to run through. These are all kind of buzzwords, so I'll just run through kind of each of these. So in the image on the top left, this is our experience lab in the London office. So it's like an IMAX screen. So we do a lot of our screen-based work in here. We showcase it to your clients or teams as well. So in the space is shared with the acoustics team, so we have 360 calibrated audio, as well as motion tracking for the 3D glasses, so as you move around, the screen moves as well. And then next on the top right-hand side is the augmented reality. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this. This is kind of very, very big on social media at the minute, on like Instagram and all that as well. So it's seeing the digital environment through a tablet or mobile device. And then underneath is VR, so you're totally blindfolded, you can't see, you're fully submerged inside the digital environment. You can also add hand sensors and things like that as well. And then on the bottom right is mixed reality. So this is kind of a collaboration of augmented and VR. So basically you put on a headset, there's a little tiny projector which projects into your eye, and you can see kind of the physical world, but there's digital environment as well around you. If you ever get the chance to try it out, it's very impressive. And we're still kind of developing on this as well. It's very at like the early beta stages as well at Arup, but it's cool to see what might happen in the future. So the immersive technology at Arup. So yeah, how are we facilitating this? So yeah, our aim is to kind of get a better feel for our projects before they're even built. So like seeing how they look and the kind of textures and materials as well. So we use software from the games industry to do this. And yeah, our aim is to kind of further progress our like BIM models, with realistic lighting and materials and ray tracing, as well as user experience design as well. So I'll just run through the 4 pillars. So yeah, again, these are our building blocks that we use when we approach a project, and they also take a fluid approach. So you kind of take kind of bits and pieces out of each of these. So it's interactive platforms, powerful storytelling, objective decision making, and human-centered experiences. So I'll start off with interactive platforms. So this is choosing which platform you want to base your project in. Is it going to be VR or AR, and so on. So first of all is the Arup Virtual Engage. This is for public consultation. We actually did this during COVID, so when all the the community centres were closed down, we brought this into a digital, into the online, so the public could access the the reports and see everything that way. And then we have the Matterport scan, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. So this is a 3D camera, or a 360 camera with LiDAR scanning as well. So you take this into a space or facility and put the camera around into various locations, and it builds a full 3D model of itself. So for this example, we did it for the NCH, where it was a confined tunnel space, and we had limited access as well. So we put the camera in, built the model, and then the engineers then could access the model kind of at any point they needed to see it. And then also we have the Hive, which is our brand new facility in the Dublin office. It's a VR space. So we have monitors, and then there's tracking as well, and some VR headsets. So we bring our kind of project teams here, and we review work or BIM models, as well as like client workshops as well. So taking them across and seeing what they think. And then we also share the space with the specialist lighting team. We've got blackout blinds. They put their lights on the wall and can see what that looks like before they kind of decide which lights they want to use. And then as well, we also do some kind of screen-based reviews. So for photo montages, we have all the big screens, so it's a great way to review as well. And then we also have the Hive Metaverse. This is kind of a new thing we're developing. So for our clients that are sometimes apprehensive or unfamiliar with VR or kind of nervous on how to use it or whatever, we can all go into VR collaboratively and see the model together. So you can link in, you can take your client around, show them, they can just tag along beside you. And then as well, we can also link in from our Cork office. We've got a Hive there, and as well as with our team in London. And you can have meetings anywhere, and it just becomes so much easier accessible. And then we also have the Experience Lab, which is in London. I'll just let this video play and then talk after. So again, I touched on this earlier, but the whole idea is to try and move kind of beyond VR and have a more natural experience as well when you're reviewing. And their future concept is to design a dome projection room that you'd be inside, and everyone can kind of talk together and have meetings. They were talking about having a motion platform underneath, so if you're on say for example a train, it would move. They're talking about wind and smelly vision and so on. It's very far advanced, but it's interesting to see these kind of come to life and the ideas as well. And then there's powerful storytelling. So this is used when you're approaching a project, you're at the very beginning, trying to understand what the project is. So if this necessarily is kind of using your artistic license to sell the concept. So at the very early stages, so for stakeholder engagement as well. So this first example is an offshore wind master plan. We're working with the engineers who were designing the different layouts. And then we brought it into Unreal Game Engine with a 3D model, and you can kind of navigate around and see the model from that perspective. You can also go to different kind of locations around the site and see the scale of how big the wind turbines will be. And then we also had one kind of going out into sea as well and seeing what that looked like. Yep. And then as well, we did some 2D photo montages for the report. So you can see it on the top left, what it's like today. So it's a dockyard that's kind of sitting there derelict. And then the idea is to renovate it then into kind of the new area for building wind turbines. And then the site as well changes throughout the life cycle of building the turbine. So you'd have the foundations and then building the floaters as well. And then we also have a different view. So pylons as well that go into it. And then we also have the interactive Dublin model. This was built to kind of showcase what our projects we're currently doing inside inner city Dublin. And we were showing that to Arup globally. And it was more to build like a timeline of projects. So you can see what it looks like today versus what it looked like in 2030. And get a feel for the change in the city. So we put in the new Dublin, our Dublin office got renovated, so we put in the new model there. And then we're also looking at Trinity College as well. We put the new science center, the new science building in. And you can just kind of navigate around and go inside the buildings as well. And then we brought Bus Connects too, so you can go into ground view and walk around the city and see it from that perspective as well. And then similarly to the wind turbine project, we brought Morrison's Island in. So this is based in Cork. So it's a flood relief scheme. Basically, they had to build. They're planning to build a wall along the River Lee, and as part of that, they decided to revamp the promenade area and make it an area shared between pedestrians, cyclists, and cars. And we also did some photogrammetry. So we flew a drone along the area, built the model inside 3D software, and it also built the 3D model of the new promenade and kind of merged all those together then inside Unreal Game Engine with the Cesium plugin to use to get into the real world and see what that looks like. And then we also worked on a project which was envisioned in Cork in the year 2101. So the engineers come up with all these kind of ideas of how the city might change and trying to make it more environmentally friendly. So we got the designs from the engineers and built a 3D model of the city, and I did some renders as well for the report, and we won as well, which was fantastic too. And next we have objective decision making. So this is quite the opposite of what I just spoke about here. Everything needs to be 100% accurate. This is for public consultation. And everything needs to be 100% accurate for that as well. So the first example is a motorway bus corridor that we did. So again, we flew a drone across the current motorway. We got the 3D model from that. And then we built then our own 3D model of the new bus corridor route and then merged that then on top of it. So you can kind of quickly see what the route will look like with animated vehicles as well. And then as part of that, there was also different variations that they wanted to use. So we could quickly switch between them. So you could change, where the bus route would be. They were talking about maybe in the center of the motorway. And the next one is similar. So this is for a railway project. For this one, we actually flew a helicopter across the route, and it was geotagged, the helicopter. So we brought that into the 3D model software. We built the whole railway with the trees, and then geotagged the rendered camera, so it would run across the railway at the same speed as the helicopter, and then merge both on top on post-production. And then again, add in all the the changes, what will be affected. This is for public consultation as well. So you're looking at where's the railway going to be, where's the new balancing ponds, the earthworks, and the new trees layout as well. And yeah, you're quickly making decisions on what that looks like. And then next is some CGI images. These are kind of our kind of standard 2D. These are great for reports. Again, for public consultation, seeing where the new layouts for bus routes and cycle lanes, as well as town planning and pedestrianisation as well. And then we also do this inside VR for team project reviews. We can go inside the metaverse together, and then check, do dimensions, check is there issues in your BIM model, and you can quickly see all you can tag all the issues where there's clash detections, and then at the very end of the session, you can download a PDF, give that to the engineer, they go back, change all the models, and then do it all over again, and it's saving a lot of time. throughout the whole process, with catching, issues very early on. And then there's human-centered experiences. So this is looking at, utilizing extended realities and the whole user experience design when thinking about, real-time engines. So I'll just go through some of these examples. So for a railway project, we did some VR navigation. So when inside VR, you're obviously blindfolded. So in the physical world, we had seats laid out. So in VR, you have this little tablet. It shows you a green line. You can walk down to your seat. You'll not trip over anything, and then sit down, and you can take a ride on the train. And it's really making the user feel comfortable, engaged throughout the whole experience, and not letting them, kind of get caught up on the technology or getting lost. It's trying to make the technology work as best as it can, so you're getting, the best out of the design data that you're seeing from that as well. And then we also have the cycle simulation. This was done for a new cycle lane in Cardiff. And we worked with hardware and the software as well together. So you could jump on a bike inside the public consultation, have a cycle, and then once you start pedaling, it'll trigger the VR, so you'll start to move as well inside VR and ride a bike. And then we also have the sound demonstrations. This was for an airport, and for this project, there was a lot of detail that needed to be put into it, and a lot of data as well. So we had to figure out, what the altitude of the plane would be, what type of plane it would be, how far away it is, and as well what location you would be in. Would it be urban or rural or kind of something in between? So this was for public consultation again, and it could have been anyone that was using it. So the UI had to be really focused where you're getting the best out of the design data as well. And we worked with our design team over in London to produce this. So yeah, you can quickly select the type of plane and where you're going to go with that. But yeah, just to finish up, as you can see, there's huge potential and gain and efficiencies when you utilize immersive technology in your projects. I just really hope you gain some kind of insights of what we do here at Arup and what we're kind of working on. And yeah, we also have a stand over there as well with VR, so come say hello, and if you have any questions, well, we're happy to answer them. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Michael. If any of my TU Dublin colleagues are listening, we should have one of them in our university. Actually, I thought there was going to be one put into Grangegorman. An immersive experience for our students. But, when we're listening back to those three presenters, what has that got to do with procurement? Well, it's got everything to do with procurement, because let's remind ourselves again, procurement is any activity necessary to deliver a business requirement in a supply chain digitally. So what's digitally doing? It's reducing costs, it's making us more efficient, and it's getting rid of the repeatable tasks. So it's not just about the construction contract, it's the life and the need for early contractor involvement and the need for offsite construction. And that leads us nicely into the next presenter, which Seya, Tansill, you're very welcome. And Seya, I really like the title, How DFMA Can Drive the Cultural Change Needed in Our Industry. I don't think offsite is a nice thing to have, it's just a must-have. So let's hear what Seya has to say.
Thank you, Alan. Great to be here today, great to be out and about, so thank you very much for organising a live event. My name is Seya Tansill. I'm the Offsite Construction Innovation Lead for BRE. I'm talking very much at the industry transformation level today, but BRE are doing an awful lot to inject the manufacturing mindset into our products and services to enable you guys to do what you're doing. We're involved in government level research around understanding whether MMC systems demonstrate performance to the mandatory parts of the building regulations, and involved in the largest data collection around MMC for Homes England, collecting productivity data on site using Calibre, which I think productivity came up earlier. So we're very much looking at trying to enable you guys in into mainstream adoption of Offsite. But today, I am going to be, has that worked? Today, I'm going to be talking about culture change. So culture change can be viewed as a bit of a softer side of the conversation, but it's definitely gaining more traction as our industry is coming under more and more scrutiny for performance. So Offsite actually requires a very different way of approaching projects. There's also some disappointment when you try and shoehorn Offsite into a normal traditional process and try and pick it up at stage 3, and it costs more. That is not what Offsite is about. It's about using a DFMA process to enable a more efficient process. Lots of our clients are wanting Offsite because of the benefits and the outcomes it claims. So some are on screen, but we've got speed, productivity. We know about those all, but it's actually how you achieve those that drives the benefits. And that is through a paradigm shift in how we look at the end-to-end process. And that enforces new behaviours and drives culture change. So what is DFMA? There's some acronyms on screen. I think maybe this audience is more educated than most, but it's a process of designing a system or product for manufacture and then very much the ease of assembly. In construction, we have MMC as the product and DFMA as the optimised process. So why is it important? Engaging with factory-built buildings provides an opportunity for automating the build. Digitising that construction phase, or at least the processes within it, and that's the important aspect for quality control, which traditionally we haven't had. So what does Offsite or DFMA process for engagement look like? I'm just going to take a moment to explain the chart on screen. This is taken from the DFMA ROBA overlay stages of work. And this is a really good document to pick up to try and grasp this concept. So please take a look if you haven't already. The blue area is the earliest to latest point in time you should be engaging with your design and construction consultants listed on the left. The y-axis is your 7 categories of MMC, and you can see engagement changes depending on what category you are using. The red line is planning application, and the yellow dotted line is your technical design freeze, which might shock some of you. It's before planning in some instances. So I'm going to look at category 1 and compare that to a standard single-stage D&B tender and talk around the differences in that. So generally a contractor in a traditional process will come on stage at 4B. And within that time frame, then between stage 5, they will be redesigning the project to their supply chain. They will be value engineering. They will be procuring. And you can see it's, when you extrapolate across the full process, a really small period in time to be firefighting all those changes. And that is the aspect that DFMA can help with. It is looking at that from a quality control perspective, but actually very much a building safety perspective in today's environment. So gone over, yeah. So if you look at the category 1 version, so a contractor comes on board, the full design team comes on board, stage 2 and construction team, and within that period you use standardised sub-assemblies to speed up the decision making, and you get to design freeze just before planning. You then have a period for that sort of final coordination and procurement, which you guys were talking about earlier. And then you have your factory manufacture stage. Nothing's changing in the Offsite design in that stage. You then have an opportunity to look at coordinating your on-site packages, so your groundworks. Your groundworks can potentially start early, and then your modules can come on site. So on face value, this second process seems to make more sense. It's plain to see that there's much better opportunity to capture coordination issues and raise quality. However, let's not ignore the big elephant in the room. What about all of this risk up front? So This is where an MMC advisor, and I don't know how many of these you have over here, but it's a role that has dramatically increased in the UK over the past couple of years. And these guys are looking at scenario modelling around this front end to reduce risk. You will be looking at altered cash flows if you're entering within a category 1 or 2 type delivery. And the MMC advisor will be looking at a whole life approach of costing. And we talk about skills. So this is sort of an evolution of how a QS might develop their way of thinking for offsite. Skills around whole life costing are key and limited at the moment. So they will be using value indexes to look at savings in time, defects, labour costs, prelims, etc., which should essentially balance that upfront spending. But you're also looking at a value exchange there for project certainty, so you're not going to get overruns, really, with the majority of offsite if it's done well. And also the value drivers that you're gaining from your brief, which is why you should be using offsite in the first instance. As I said earlier, there's a lot of work up front, and even though that's the key aspect of DFMA process or optimized process, it does need to be controlled. So the Chancery Lane Project are a global group of legal professionals which are looking at this space, and they have just developed Madiva's clause on screen, and that is suitable for use within NEC and FAC contracts, currently looking at JC2. And essentially that is providing options for reducing scope or controlling scope for all the disciplines up front, which really shows even the legal industry are looking at innovation to enable the uptake of offsite. So the digital world is also helping to reduce risk, and one of those is through platforms. You might have heard of platforms coming up in a number of conversations in the past few years. They're terming it DFMA, so more acronyms. And the platform rulebook has just been released for consultation in the UK. So, what is a platform? Platforms are used globally across other industries, but are becoming more mainstream now in construction. They're a digitally available base set of low variety components, and these allow repeatability of standardized components across a number of built assets. You then have a set of interoperable components. I mean, drawers are the great example there, that deliver the project variables, but through custom options. They're preset options. And then the most important and probably least understood at the moment is the standardized interface connection in platforms. There's research going on, seismic in the UK, and we've got a demonstrator on the Innovation Park as a standard interface connection for Category 1 systems, which they're hoping to roll out. DLUC have just commissioned or just put out an EOI for Category 2 and Category 5 to develop a similar thing. And the importance of a standard connection actually is the understanding around performance for fire and structural. That interaction testing is something that is, I'd say, unknown at the moment, but untested through traditional means. So there won't just be one platform, there will be many. They need to respond to an aggregated pipeline. And there are some, so the MEP industry have developed this and are mature in this space. So NG Bailey, for instance, have mature platforms for the public sector buildings and have gained huge efficiencies from it. So how does a platform help? This is taken from the platform rulebook. A key to platforming, I suppose, is to maximise repetition without compromising variability across projects, which means more standardised components can be used across different sectors. The benefit for this is that manufacturers can actually reach markets that they wouldn't be able to previously reach because their components weren't suitable or deemed suitable for those areas. And that really gets over this issue with gaps in factory lines, which is causing issues with cash flows, and we've seen a couple of major players within the housing offsite market unfortunately go bust recently. However, platforms are introducing more jargon into our industry, so understanding around components, sub-assemblies, assemblies, and assets will be really important with data management to understand the definition between that across the full process. So I'm going to move on to platforms and pipelines, but it's really, really offsite and pipelines. So platforms have been developed to de-risk that front end, but it's also been developed in response to the shift in procurement being championed by the UK government. The UK government has started to view their spending as long-term investments rather than one-off projects. And they've started, and this is a big culture shift for the industry. A number of new guidance documents have come into existence. The construction playbook was first and has been around for a little while. A lot of the tier ones are quite familiar with this in the UK now. It's 14 rules of supply chain engagement, focus on the drive for better, greener, faster. The TIP roadmap has come out recently again, and that is really leading the way. That has actually mandated digital twins, which is brilliant, and also platforms to an extent. And then I think constructing the gold standard was mentioned earlier, which is the 24 rules to adhere to, and that is measures around social value, leadership, competency, digital technologies, and early engagement. These are all the culture shifts that we are wanting to achieve. So all these documents use DFMA as the method of how to get there, and all these documents are advocating for long-term contracting relationships to gain project learnings and improvement. However, in order to enable these, you need certainty and transparency of those investment pipelines. There has been a limitation in growth in platforms because the investment in the UK started with the manufacturers first and didn't really think about the pipelines for them to invest and respond to. If there was a lessons learned, and if we could start again, we would probably flip that round. I can't stress enough really the importance of understanding project planning and for the government really to be publishing that in order for the offsite industry to be planning against. So let's think about building greener as another cultural shift we need to grasp. The two biggest risk factors to our stability on Earth are probably climate change and housing shortage. We've got 4.5 billion people coming onto Earth very shortly, and we just don't have the capability to respond, or the speed capability to respond to that. I'm going to say that the current measure of carbon actually isn't beneficial for offsite because it doesn't regulate embodied carbon. And therefore, offsite at the moment isn't able to prove its better performance. Hopefully that will change, but I think that's 3 to 5 years down the line, which is unfortunate. You may have all seen the HTA Croydon Tower scheme published recently, and they measured the embodied carbon on that scheme, and they measured a 45% improved performance in embodied carbon against traditional, and that's a massive saving. Unfortunately, it's not measured because it's not mandated. So offsite systems in terms of carbon are beneficial. It tends to reduce the use of concrete and steel, informs less transport for on-site workers and less transport for individual material deliveries. So inherently, in a few years' time, we might see uptake of offsite from carbon measure. We will see. And last but not least, offsite for building safety. Gone are the days we can say we've done it before. Grenfell has sort of put a stopper to that, and it's changed the building safety landscape for good. What is coming out of that in the UK is a huge digital transformation. We have the Building Safety Bill coming in, and that will be mandating the golden thread. There's two aspects to that. That will drive change in information management in terms of creating traceable digital records of all the building elements. And I come back to assemblies, sub-assemblies, assets, components. It will make it much easier through platforms to do that. And then the information management process, and that is to ensure an accurate measure of the building elements and that they're kept up to date through the whole life of the building. So digital upskill is going to be critical, back to the skills gap in maintaining traceability and quality of this golden thread, and really collection of data to hold accountability. Sadly, but it's needed. The Construction Innovation Hub are releasing in September a standard quality control process that they are deeming as CQCP, always get those acronyms wrong. And this controls the product's design, material substitutions, commissioning, checking, and this is developed actually from the automotive industry, but primed for the construction industry. For those of us already using DFMA, it's much easier as the full process of the building creation is already digitised. There isn't this gap at stage 5, and the factory should have quality control processes in place which tracks that decision making needed by the golden thread. So that's it from me. I hope I've been able to demonstrate that DFMA is a good enabler to drive a culture shift, and that's very much towards collaboration, greener and safer buildings. These are the outcomes we want for our industry. It's just accelerated through a rethink on how we approach projects and the process. Great.
Super job. Say you did a super job. Thank you so much. Another acronym to live with. Yeah, offsite construction, it's like BIM. If you do it right, it works. If you don't do it right, it doesn't work. So we can't digitize unless we standardize. That's the big message coming out of today as well. So our last speaker before lunch, again, no stranger to an audience like this. Another giant in construction, BAM Construction, again, a great supporter of the Alliance. And there's no better way to top and tail our session with two great companies, Irish companies and Dutch companies, who show us the way how to build properly. So is Michael with us? Michael, take it away.
Okay. God, it's great to be back. Great to see so many people. It really is. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Sue, and the extended CitA crew as well. You know, for all the support over the years in driving digitalisation in our industry. Kudos. I was supposed to be joined by my colleague Greg Byrne today, but unfortunately, asthma and COVID don't go hand in hand. So he sends us apologies, and Greg, if you're listening, we miss you, we love you, we wish you well, speedy recovery. So I'm Michael Murphy. I'm an operations manager with BAM. I'm here today to talk about one of the finest projects we've ever had the good fortune of working on, which is, of course, is the Museum of the Future in Dubai. So we want to have the clicks before the bricks in BAM. That's one of our taglines. We've had many over the years, but this one kind of resonates quite strongly with myself. So we want to ensure that we take all of our learnings right into the early phase of our delivery and make sure we make all of our mistakes there. So we try and avoid doing it later on in the process where it's quite costly and expensive. Briefly about BAM, 1869, 7.2 billion in terms of revenue, 23,500 full-time equivalents globally. We're listed on the Euronext, so we are a PLC, so we have we're quite unique in Ireland in that regard. And yeah, a business that covers the whole life cycle across the construction industry. And just two things to mention as well. It is Pride Month, so we should shout out for that as well. And it's also Men's Wellbeing Week, Health Week. So to all the men in the room, we are bad to mind our physical and mental health. Beware of that this week, yeah? We have to get it out there. I know our business certainly is. Please try and think about that, because we are all tough and strong and tend not to go to doctors. So if you have any concerns, make sure you do that. So I'm going to throw that out there. Just run through a couple of our recent projects, some really nice projects. Boland's Quay, NATO headquarters in Brussels. These will be the types of projects BAM might be taking on. The Courts Bundled PPP, we've done numerous PPPs throughout the years, all very interesting buildings, again, full life cycle delivery. A lot of them delivered through BIM. The Port House in Antwerp, another fantastic looking building. Microsoft's European headquarters. The V&A in Dundee in Scotland, another really unique building. A lot of these buildings would be very challenging to deliver without this type of technology. The Femmerbelt Tunnel linking Germany and Denmark, an enormous ongoing project right now. Some of our colleagues have been working for years and years on that and will into the future as well, I'm sure. Another really unique project, the BAS, the British Antarctic Survey Project in Antarctica. So it's basically like going to the moon. You've got to get all the gear and make sure it all works when you're there. So if ever there was a case for simulating something, this project was it. Our work there was relatively straightforward, but in terms of what we had to build, but the environment was absolutely hostile. So again, a huge amount of technology utilised there to deliver that. And of course, the National Children's Hospital in Dublin as well, another fantastic ongoing project. A lot of you may have seen these slides before, so forgive me for reiterating it, but we see that kind of continuous expanse in terms of why we need to kind of get in there and get in there early. And people always forget this until everyone has gone off-site and it's all gone wrong and it's all very expensive. So, we really do need to spend our money up front to ensure that we have better outcomes at the latter stages of projects. Again, our experience over the years, we look at accessing single points of information and making sure our information is fluid. It's not always the case in construction, as we all know. We have multiple pain points where we onboard and offboard people. People have got to relearn things from scratch. There has to be a better way. Of course there has to be a better way. So obviously one of the things you would want to kind of do in that particular instance would be to smooth out the transition of information and make sure people are onboarded from the start, have easy access to information, and they're stepping in and out of platforms. And even within our own business, when we go from bidding to estimate or from tendering to delivery, we would quite often almost be resetting the clock to retrain people on the information that's there. So we're looking to eradicate that as much as we possibly can. In terms of our own business, we are constantly assessing where we are through internal analysis, in terms of setting targets for ourselves and really pushing the digital agenda within the wider group. So the information you see there is from November 2020 in terms of some of our targets and where we want to be. We don't always hit them, and that allows us to double down and refocus in terms of where we want to be and the type of training we feel we need to deliver internally. So again, really competency is so important, and making sure when we go on our change journey and we explain to people why we're trying to do this, that we really bring them on in an effective way to hopefully improve their day-to-day as well, in terms of actually being able to focus on the things they're professionally trained to do, be creative, do engineering, instead of mundane day-to-day administrative tasks. So on to the museum itself. Really going through quite the purple patch at the moment in terms of incredible buildings to be involved with. I hate to say it, but I think I'm probably beyond my, greatest involvement with this particular building. It's quite the eye catcher. And from the first day BAM International reached into us in BAM Ireland for our assistance in a digital perspective, it was clear to myself, Paul Brennan and Greg and the wider BAM Ireland team that this is something we really wanted to kind of be involved with, and we're very keen to, make sure that we put our best foot forward. When we started looking at the tender and we looked at the project requirements, the client was highly knowledgeable. Morass, they had some really fantastic people working for them, really understood the need for better information and the type of information the client wanted. So, that was really heartwarming actually, because quite often it's not the case. People are looking for BIM or digital on a project, but it kind of starts and stops at that point. These guys and girls laid it all on top of us in terms of what they expected and what they wanted. They had their own version of an employer's information requirements, which raised eyebrows at the start, but then 3 or 4 weeks into it, it's like, well, this is probably how it should be. So they had the Morass information requirements. They had it all laid out. They understood exactly what it was they wanted. Why did they want it? What format did they want it in? What were they going to do with it? It was all there before our very eyes, which was kind of quite profound and scary all at the same time. So they had full justification for everything they were expecting from the various different bidders within that process. Quite refreshing. And uniquely as well, they had captured various other things within the CIR, like a sense of behaviour, the way they wanted the teams to work together, how collaborative the contract should be, the cadence, the drumbeat for the meetings that would happen as well. So again, that was all encapsulated there. The social style of communication, there was some really social type of individuals on the project, personalities were everything, and they made a real effort to kind of onboard, us once we were successful in the bid as part of that team. And again, you know, they wanted us to demonstrate our capability, so having certification, etc., and all of that was super important. In terms of the selection process, there were 6 contractors. They got 6 very different formats back, as you would imagine. This was back in the days of level 2 BIM as opposed to ISO 19650. So they kind of reiterated the template and made us go again, which to my mass frustration, you know, drove me bananas, but we did it nonetheless. And it really helped them, you know, make the right type of decision in the end. It was much easier in the end, obviously, to compare all of those contractors when you had a standardized template. So they were learning lessons as they were going, and they were highly apologetic for that fact. But, you know, quite refreshing, actually. You wouldn't often get that within a competitive bidding situation. This will give you a sense of the project org chart, just to see the main players. So again, the brilliant Bure Happold, AECOM, Killa Design, wow, you know, wow is all I have to say in terms of Killa Design and the work they produce. And then you can see us in our extended supply chain down the bottom, from Eversendai, Transgulf and Afan, etc. So quite the cast of you know, players there as well. We had an extensive team internally ourselves, just to give you a sense as to what it took for us to stand this up. So everyone on the far left-hand side were basically based in Ireland for the most part. Greg, to his great credit, spent a number of months out in Dubai standing the project up, building relationships, you know, with our extended colleagues in BAM International as well. And then finally, Derek and Owen basically delivered that project from a digital perspective on the ground in Dubai with support from head office as we were going. So they had their requirements, but of course we had ours. So as a business, we're very keen to start looking at ourselves. It's always about us and where we can be more efficient. The client's requirements were there, they were very clear, we felt we could deliver upon them. Some aspects of it were significantly challenging, but from our own perspective, we had an extended team who we were onboarding with some digital technologies as well. You know, not everybody had done these types of things before or necessarily worked with models. So we had a lot of work to gain some efficiencies there and train our team. As I mentioned, it was level 2 BIM. It wasn't class A level 2 BIM insofar as it read, you know, it mirrored the documentation identically, but it was their version of it, and they were getting their value that they felt they needed from it critically as a client. There was an enormous amount of computational engineering in the background with this building. As you can imagine, it's a hyper complex frame. And it was very clear to us very early on that they had leveraged huge amounts of computing power to make this building a reality as well, to our great comfort, I might add. The procurement process was interesting. It was single stage. They left all of the detailed design with us. They were crystal clear about that, zero ambiguity. It was a painful process for us to go and identify all of the various different gaps and carry that risk forward, and we did. It was challenging, but at least they were kind of clear and open and upfront with us about where that project was in terms of that. So as you can imagine, when we looked at this, we were like, how's this building not going to fall over when you attempt to build it? Some of the high-level stats on the building: 30,000 square meters floor area, 28,000 cubes concrete, etc., etc. I won't read through them all. You can see them there for yourself, just to give you a sense of the size and the scale of the building. Not an enormous building, I might add, just a very, very complicated building in terms of its floor area and its form, should I say. Obviously, Dubai is not that close to Ireland, so we had an enormous amount of toing and froing in terms of virtual conferencing. We had about 18 video conferences with them as we were working through the development of the BIM execution plan, an extensive process, the most extensive BIM execution plan development process I have ever been involved in. Clients rarely step back into us and try to develop it out as extensively as these guys did, and they really did. And at the end, we had a plan that was very well thought through, fully agreed and finalised, and we could just get out there, get to Dubai and get started. In terms of the big numbers in the day, so we had 65 models, 4,000 drawings, 440 BIM 360 users. We had 27 billion points captured in terms of laser scanning, and 20.15 terabytes of data captured on the project as well. So, you know, it's not the biggest project we worked on in that regard, but it was substantial amounts of data nonetheless, and we needed the right type of technology in the background to support that. There will be a number of slides here now just around the actual construction process to give you a sense as to what it looked like and felt like as we were going. Starting off with the complex architecture. Not many 90-degree angles in this building, unfortunately. Yeah, some flat surfaces are all right, but you can see from the shape and the form of it, it's a very, very complicated piece of architecture. And it really would put the frighteners on you, to coin an Irish phrase, when you look at something like that and you think, wow, you know, and Michael, even to your presentation with the visualization, I was just thinking, if I had have probably experienced that with this building, I may have had a stroke at the time, just to kind of see it. These were scary enough, but if you had been immersed in it, it would have been frightening. And your presentation was amazing, by the way. But yeah, really, really complicated building. And the desire for this building is to host future technologies. So a lot of the wonderful things we talk about here today, this building would aspire to host them and present them for the future, for people and to see it. Like, it's an odd thing, a museum of the future. It's not often what you would associate with the museum. Yeah, so big open spaces, a lot of very white walls with, incredibly intricate, Arabic texts laden across the facade as well. Just some cross sections to help you appreciate what what was happening inside of the building. So you could probably say slightly inefficient form, insofar as you weren't exactly using the whole floor area. They weren't too concerned about that, I might add. But you can basically see from the auditorium, the lobby area, the lift core, how that's centred. And on the far left-hand side, you can see the escape stairs, probably the most elaborate escape stairs ever built. But nonetheless, it's there. That's not what you would typically see over here in Ireland. And then all of the various different exhibition spaces as you stepped up throughout the building as well. Again, just another view of that from within one of the Navisworks files, just to let you see it. Not the best image in the world. A very, very complicated concrete frame. So we had a full management team that were an Irish management team, huge amount of Irish people out in Dubai working on this project. The Irish team based here in BAM Ireland had a long-standing relationship with BAM International, where we would send a lot of our people out there, particularly back from the hard times. So that kind of continued on as the years went on as well. So that's where our connection kind of came from. And you can see the crazy monument in the bottom left-hand corner there, which is a hand, but you'll see more of that in a few minutes. In terms of the frame, the ring beam, so we had some really complicated aspects to the ring beam. This is one of the largest single concrete pours we ever conducted within the whole of our business as well. You can see the cages there. Actually, when you take a look at some of these images, you'll kind of realise that, and you may or may not see a couple of humans there. I'll actually click on, I think we have a video here of the pour. So the base of the building isn't actually enormous. Like, it's quite compact. The building spreads out from it. But this pour, I can't quite remember exactly what the statistics were, but it went on for hours and hours and hours, but it happened, basically we got it done in one. So there was a couple of different perspectives as to whether we should or should not do that, but that's what the team decided to do, and it worked out. It was fine in the end, but with an enormous amount of planning. Tekla was used extensively on this from a reinforcement perspective. Plenty of awards won on this project, as you can imagine, but the reinforcement here was all done through all 3D rebar, all fully thought through and designed up front to make sure that we didn't have any issues when we were going, getting it all poured. In terms of the steel frame, just an incredible steel frame. Again, very complicated, quite large, and to try and make sure there was stability, and it was really the big challenge as we were going with the building as well. So again, another view of it here. This is from the Tekla model. Every single, aspect of the structural steel here was fabricated from these models with our partners. wires, right down to all the various different connections you would expect to see. So this is a video they had produced for some of the competitions they were entering as they were going through this. So as we were putting the steel up on site in Dubai, they were winning awards for how they were going about this in Dublin as well. It was a crazy situation. But again, the temporary works, and we'll show you some images now in a second around this, were as substantial as the steel frame itself. And not until the last steel connection was made could we attempt to remove any support from the frame as well. And just hope that it all put together and stood a real challenge. You can see some of the sections of the diagram have been lifted in. It's funny because when you get down to reality in a project, it's never as clean and clear as you'd like to think it would be. When you're looking at it in models, it can be challenging. But you can see some of the diagrams sat in along the ring beam there. The accuracy of this was super important because the rest of the frame is going to have to stand around it. So again, it's similar to what Cillian was mentioning earlier on. Validation, verifying where all of this is was really, really important as part of that process. That would be a glimpse of some of the temporary work and the scaffolding going up around the building to allow us to attend to the structural steel and make it good. Again, very, very complicated. We had pneumatic jacks in place to kind of push the building up and keep it in place. So that was fun. And all of this right next to a motorway, with live traffic 24/7. Again, just some views of it there. Design for manufacturing assembly was been used here because everything was been manufactured off-site in a factory environment, and again we had to constantly scan and feed the information back in to ensure that what was being designed and manufactured was going to fit when it actually got out there. And trying to find connections that were going to be replicable throughout the whole of the building, so we didn't have to have loads of unique connections within the frame, made an enormous amount of sense to try and keep the costs down. The services piece was just mind-boggling in a building like this. I'd say it was a services engineer's nightmare. Just to try and push fluid and move air wasn't simple. You didn't have traditional risers. Yeah, we had them on the left-hand side, but you can see over on the right-hand side, just the supply air and return air. It was just a crazy situation. Trying to get that installed in a safe and efficient manner wasn't straightforward. But again, the whole MEP system was all modelled. They did off-site manufacture where they could, but again, aspects of this building had to be stick-built just because of the nature of the shape of it. Moving on to the facade. What an amazing looking facade, but it would nearly have broke you to get it delivered. It's you'll get some sense of scale here in terms of the size of these panels. So we've dropped some humans in there for scale. You can see there it was very highly, it was a very well manufactured facade, as you can imagine would have to be. It's a hostile environment out in Dubai in terms of the weather, obviously. But again, every single panel was just different. So this was probably the greatest challenge we had in our project, was getting that facade manufactured and getting it into place. And actually trying to dress it up against the frame that you would hope sat in the location you wanted it to sit as well. So trying to design it so it would fit was quite challenging. But again, verification played a huge, huge role in this project, just specifically for the facade. Brilliant. You couldn't have done it without it, really, to be perfectly honest. They had trialled the Field Ink RTS with Trimble on the project with great success. So again, we were able to reduce labour there, a lot of time and energy spent out, and this was specifically, I believe, around the bracket points for the M&E installation, just so much of it to happen, but they used this and they really reduced the amount of time and energy required to kind of get this all set out and get it installed. On the verification piece, you can see it didn't all exactly go in where you would wanted it to have gone in. So feeding this back into our supply chain as they're manufacturing was super important. we had missed a location by about 350 mil in one instance. And that was fine. It was okay to miss it as long as we fed it up the line and they could include that within their ongoing manufacturing. It wasn't a problem. In years gone by, you would struggle to do this. You wouldn't have the technology. It would land out on site and it wouldn't fit, and everyone would be having a crisis. So, just capturing the digital information, filtering it through, pushing it up towards the supply chain was all good. Set out bolts, another really simple example, just around the frame where they were. Get these, get this information in, get it in early so everyone knows what they're doing. Just really simple example. So many uses for some of these point clouds that, as the project would go on, someone would find another use for it in terms of feeding it to somebody else and for some use. So huge value garnered from all of that. You can see them sat in there. Just on the left-hand side, you've got an actual point cloud. On the right-hand side, you've got reality. They were big bits of kit. They weren't easy to kind of retro-manufacture. You wanted to kind of do them once and do them well. And for the most part, we managed to achieve that. So it really did underpin all activities on the project, actually, which was really heartwarming. So when you have a combination of a client and a contractor and an extended supply chain in a complex building, technologies really can come to bear to make some of these things work for you. And that was probably the most, apart from the building itself, and to be left at such a fantastic building and have to have been a part of it, but to have been a part of a project where people really utilised technology because they kind of had to as well, was great. And it was used the right ways, the right time, by the right people. The gentleman you see in the picture there, Sean McGinley, who was an integral part of the delivery of this particular building. And the first project I ever worked on in BAM was the mental health unit down in Cork University Hospital with Sean. And I had my work cut out for me at the time to convince Sean that BIM and technology was the right way to go. And I remember Derek Burke sent me that photograph and I nearly fell off my seat in the office in Kildare because it's like, if Sean's using it, that's a really, really great sign. He's a complete convert now. We had to do an asset delivery on the project as well. It's something we've been doing from way back in Schools Bundle 4. We're utilising Autodesk technology for that, QR codes, capturing information. Again, just trying to take as much possible information as we can around the asset. With this particular building, we agreed an approach with the client, tried to be pragmatic about it. They didn't want everything, but they wanted to sit down with us and discuss and discover what would work well where. So we pulled together a schedule where we broke it down by different grades. And if I just go back a bit, you'll see we've got yellow, green and red areas delineating what particular part of the asset would receive what type of treatment. And that's kind of how we broke it down. So only grade 1 areas would receive full COBE. Grade 2, it would be a room volume to get a QR code and information would be attached. And grade 3 was like a higher space area because there were some mass areas of space within this building, just large volume areas. But again, you just include the documents on a hyperlink and that's what they would get. So they were very happy with that. Quite a pragmatic client, I might add. And we didn't have to deliver COBE on absolutely every last bit of this particular asset. They were happy with what they got. Just some images of the building as it was being constructed. And of course, the big finger. One of the most bizarre things I've probably ever seen at a meeting. But there you go. That's the type of stuff that would often turn up. So yeah, that did the rounds quite rapidly, but it was just a sample as to what was to come in terms of that particular, I don't even want you to call it an installation, I suppose, at the front of the building. So yeah, kind of reminded me of the voice show. I think there's a TV show where they have a hand or something like that. I was like, why are they putting that symbol outside the front of the Museum of the Future? But they did anyway. Another view just from the angle, you can see the scaffolding in the middle of the building, and actually the scaffolding working its way all the way up through the middle of the building as well on the left-hand side, just completely covered in it. And you can see our major jacking towers there on the left-hand side and in the middle, preparing for the last piece of the jigsaw to come together. Just a view from the ground up, give you a sense of scale. I thought that was a great picture myself, actually. I don't know who took it, so I can't credit them. Apologies for that. But again, you can just see as the clouds come in over Dubai, you can see the museum creeping through the top. So, I want to finish on this myself, and I will read it out. So, digital technologies are now enabling the AEC industry to design and construct ever more complex and intriguing buildings. I really believe our future industry will be an exciting, creative and rewarding option for the best and the brightest. A place where their creativity will directly and positively impact our day-to-day lives. this industry needs the best. These are fantastic projects we can now work on. We can design really complex, intriguing spaces for humans to be. And it is thanks to technology and the great people that operate them, day to day. So thank you for your time. Please visit us on our digital website within BAM. Connect with me, connect with us. Thank you again, Alan, and the CitA team. And I will now let you have your lunch. Or maybe we're doing questions and answers.
I think we're just going to ask the speakers to come up and we take a few questions. Thanks, Michael. You did a great job. So, Cillian and Dillon, thank you very much. John, Michael, Seya, and Michael again. I'm going to take your notes. So, just a couple of questions maybe. There'll be an opportunity during lunch, obviously, to ask any other questions of the speakers. And as I say, all activities necessary to deliver a business requirement with the supply chain digitally. That's what we're doing. So the story continues this afternoon because Dillon's going to talk about planet, sustainability, more about Offsite. Andrew's going to be talking from Cillian, the quality, has some smart PMO and so on. So the jigsaw hasn't been fully put together. One question, Michael.
Yes.
When the final sections came together, how far were you out?
I don't know, but all I know is they got it together.
They got it
so
together.
They couldn't have been that far.
All right. So if you didn't have scanning technology, you wouldn't have been able to fix that.
I don't think so.
Okay. Any questions for our speakers? Have we got the mics? I can hear the tummies rumbling from here. Right. Eamon, you have a question.
Sorry, it's easier.
Hello. Hi, Eamon Shields, SEAI, Program Manager for Commercial Retrofit. I just want to say firstly that the presentations, I think it's really heartening to see the industry taking on, I suppose, the whole sustainability task, and I think yesterday was a sign of that as well, Alan.
Yeah.
Just a quick question for John. Sorry, John. it's a nice one, don't worry. So one major thing, I suppose, is, as the name of my role suggests, we're looking into how we can deal with the commercial existing building stock. Obviously, domestic is getting taken care of to a large degree. And one of the roles we see in that are one of the main things, as opposed to just blindly rolling out heat pumps to buildings that possibly aren't suited for it or can't afford the running costs of them at the minute, is to get into the digitalisation of these buildings. And I suppose in terms of what you're talking about there, so whether it be the software or the actual sensors, how compatible are they with, so let's say, an existing building, maybe a 90s building or something like that? I have heard that a lot of the technology coming from Siemens and other developers are able to be overlaid, so take advantage of existing, controls or whatever that might be in distinct Mitsubishi DX units and stuff like that, because I think what's really important from our point of view is, and there's a question at the end here, obviously.
What is the question? Yeah.
What's really important from our point of view is that, I suppose, that this technology that's going to create energy efficiency is that it can be economically layered onto the existing buildings. We don't want to be at a stage where we have to pull out all the existing lights, so we get in the lights that have the sensors in them. So I suppose, just in terms of what you have available there, how, in terms of economics and reducing any embodied carbon costs, how well do they work in both them elements?
Long question, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little bit in that. So it's getting easier, but I mean, there's a lot of Siemens systems out there for quite a long time, and a lot of other equipment, and there is an occasion where it's at end of life, and it's not possible really to get the optimum result without pulling stuff out and replacing it with the right controllers that can communicate. But there's now a better range of edge devices and connectivity that can be managed and updated from the cloud, so there's more options there for that connectivity, particularly through more edge devices. And yeah, it's getting easier, it's getting better for that piece, so that we can make it easier for integration and for retrofitting in particular, because it is a big challenge, but we're up for it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, John. Actually, question for SEI. Are we doing enough? Is the government doing enough for the household, for the households of this country who are struggling to pay their bills? We've got very efficient homes, inefficient homes. And really, I think the government have a responsibility. If they want this climate action transformation, they've got to help more, I think, the public to transform the homes they live in. Sorry, Eamon, I don't know if I put you on the spot there, but anyway, just a little gripe there. And I know there's funding there, but it is an issue, isn't it? For the
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Commercial clients can afford it, but
That wasn't the deal. I prefer to just ask the questions
Yeah.
rather than answer them. But
Sorry.
yeah, no, look, I think it's like there certainly is a massive chat. Like there's a huge amount of money going into it, and I think sometimes it's hard to gauge exactly. Like there's a huge amount of modelling was done before the rollout, for example, of the one-stop shop that suggested all these kind of rates for insulation and everything else were going to be adequate for the people at the time. Unfortunately, it has landed at exactly the same time that we're having an energy crisis. So possibly some of the metrics aren't working out exactly as they would have done when it was modelled a year ago.
It's a no-brainer though for the government, just to help people more. Now we'll see obviously what they announce later this year.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I suppose, yeah. Well, it's all our money at the end of the day, so we need to be
Absolutely.
careful too.
Okay, maybe thanks, Eamon, for putting you on the spot. John, you can shout.
It seems far too good
John.
not to ask.
Yes.
It seems far too good an opportunity not to ask Cillian, Michael and Seya, what in actual fact are the dimensional tolerances now that are allowed, are achievable with digitisation and scanning? And the second just quick question, is the frame in Dubai, is that welded? Are the joints on it welded joints?
No,
They're bolted.
it's a mixture of both, John, to be honest.
Yeah. But I mean, I am interested in the tolerance.
But
And why was it moving?
Well, it moves because they move, and as you load it up, and but in terms of tolerances, John, in an environment like this, it's not any different to what it would have been. We're still constructing to traditional tolerances within these frames. Now, arguably, we could probably go, smaller on these tolerances as we go. We don't want to do that because it makes life harder for us. But when you look at the likes of Intel and some of these hyper complex projects that CISC and BAM be working on, you're definitely working in smaller tolerances there, and the technology is absolutely assisting it. But with a steel frame like that, it's, the bigger the frame, the more movement you're going to see in it as well.
Yeah. I suppose just to come in on that, so any project that we'd be doing would agree construction tolerances, that we'd have them in virtually in the BIM environment, but then when you go out on site, so it would vary from project to project and what package you're working on. It could come down to millimetre accuracy, or you could have plus 5 or 10 mil, depending on what package you're working on. So, but again, that'll be all documented up front in the BIM execution plan. Everyone's made aware of it, and then that's what you go out and deliver to, and you'd verify against those tolerances you set out at the start.
Thank you, Cillian. See you want to, I'm getting the evil eye here.
Similar message, but the BSI have actually just opened a committee around tolerances, and we'll be producing new tolerance requirements around offsite. And as Cillian says, it's very different depending on what category and what interface you're looking at. So they are smaller tolerances for different systems, but there will be a bit more sort of regulation around that coming forward.
Thank you, guys. Lunch beckons, so I think we can maybe show our appreciation. Is there one question before we